Well folks, it's been a while since you guys have seen the 61 GMC. Done a lot of work to it since the last video, and I actually made a couple videos, but they never got uploaded due to I was jumping around a lot. And it was kind of, the work was moving along, so I didn't really want to take time to film stuff. But I figured today I'm going to see what I can do for showing you guys what I'll be doing to it. I got to do wheel cylinders in the front because they're leaking like crazy, and you don't really have brakes. And I also have a big steering stabilizer I got to put in the front because this truck gets death wobble like you would not believe. And being a manual steering big truck like this, it kind of brings a whole new definition to that word. So that's got to get taken care of. But over the past while, the two major things I've done is I put line locks in here so that way I have parking brakes for the time being until I can find the original setup. I also painted the frame from the cab back so it's ready for the bed. And if all works out, I should have a 3-speed brownie box on the way for this truck to bump the speed up. So we're going to be turning it into a twin stick, which will be pretty darn cool. So hopefully there'll be some videos on that, installing it and everything. So I'm really looking forward to that. But anyways, here's the frame. Everything came out really nice. I just ended up painting it with some rusty metal Rust-Oleum primer, the brown stuff, and then I brush painted it Rust-Oleum black. So I'm pretty happy with it. It would have been nice to do the whole truck, obviously enough, but time is not going to allow for it this year. And I still have to take, because they stamped GMC into the differential, and I'm going to outline this in white with some Rust-Oleum white, which I think would be a really nice touch to it. But you can see I got my boards ready for the bed. We're going to be dropping the bed on later this week, so if all goes well, I'll be able to get a video of that. And my line locks is just that switch next to the key switch. You flip it up. After you push the brakes in, it locks the rear brakes, and you have a parking brake. But today, like I said, we're going to be doing the wheel cylinders. There's 2 on each side, so I ordered these up earlier last week, so we're going to be replacing those and trying to flush the system the best we can. I got about a gallon of brake fluid because it's pretty much like mud coming out of this system. It's really bad stuff. So we're going to be flushing that through and see if we can get all that cleaned out. So anyways, let's get the front of this thing jacked up and start pulling the wheels off. Nothing like 50-plus-year-old axle grease. Luckily, I've already done this once because I had to free up my front brakes because they were dragging. Oh yeah, it's all puddled up in there, and as you can see probably it's all leaking down here, so wheel cylinders were definitely shot. So I'm going to lay down some cardboard and we can start pulling apart these shoes and getting these wheel cylinders off. Hopefully, if everything goes well, we can get the lines off the back of the wheel cylinders, because I don't know how those are going to come undone. If not, we're going to be making some lines today too. shoes actually aren't in too bad a shape. I don't know how well you can see that, but still plenty of life left from the rivets. Oh yeah, covered in brake fluid. Have to degrease those pretty good later. Now the backs of these, I have to scrape some of the dirt off this backing plate and see if we can get lucky enough to have some of these lines break free. Which they got banjo fittings on them, so actually I don't have to break free the lines. I can just take the banjo fittings off. With any luck, that should do it. One wheel cylinder came off alright, the other one should also. So as you guys can see here, it tees off up at the top because there's two of them on the front, obviously enough. You have a line that goes down to a banjo fitting. This bolt came out real nice on the other one, so I'm going to do that to the same to this side. But first, I'm going to get this front one mounted up so that way we can stop leaking. And so far, the fluid actually isn't too bad. There was the bucket, I didn't wipe it out, but you can see it's a little bit brown. It actually looks 100% better than it did the first time I bled these, because it was pretty much like brown mud. You could not see through it whatsoever. There was a lot of crusty rust stuff pushing out of it, so it was pretty nasty stuff. But anyways, we'll get this wheel cylinder on, and then we can do the same to this side also. So there you have it. That's the driver's side all done. Wheel cylinders went in nice. I cleaned the brake shoes up the best I could. I think I got the majority of the fluid and the oil out of them. They seem to be a lot better than what they were, so that's the main thing. I also wiped down the backing plate with a bunch of paint thinner, degreased all that. Everything went in real nice on the back side. As you can see, there and there. So I just degreased the brake drum inside of the hub, and I'm going to throw the wheel back on this side, get my bearing all tightened down, and then I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing, get those changed out. Alright, I got my front wheels back on the passenger side here. Unfortunately, I discovered that I'm going to need new kingpins because the bottom one here is loose. It'll move like that, not a ton, but enough where it's going to end up throwing off the front alignment and everything else. So now I'm going to have to figure out where I can get those kingpins, because I have no idea where to start looking for those, or if they still make them, or who knows what. So I'm going to have to look around for them. Both sides need them. They're both loose, so I might as well do uppers and lowers. So that's going to have to get done. And over here, I took apart my brake booster, because the problem I was having with this when I got it is you push down on the brakes, and this has the vacuum assist, vacuum power booster, and it would suck air through the vent underneath the cab on the floor right there, and you lose vacuum in your engine and it wouldn't run and it would choke out and die. Well, it turns out that the diaphragm on the inside has got a nice big old hole in it, so that's why I'm losing my vacuum, because it shouldn't be pulling off of this side, because this is just a vent side. It should be pulling inside there. And the other thing I discovered too when I pulled this apart is I got a ton of brake fluid that came out, which, as you can see, is pretty nasty looking stuff. So that means the seal inside of here where this piston comes out through to the diaphragm is junk. So at some point I'm going to have to find a rebuild kit for this brake booster. The reason why I haven't pulled it out is because I know the lines aren't going to come out of it, because I've tried it before, and I'm not going to replace the lines in it today. But I figured I'd maybe try to fix this diaphragm if I can put a patch over it. I've got some weather strip adhesive, which is incredibly strong stuff when it comes to bonding the rubber and whatnot, so I'm going to try that, and hopefully that'll take care of it for the time being. But anyways, let's see if we can get this diaphragm off here. I've got my patch all glued in. It looks pretty terrible actually, so I'm not sure how well it's going to hold, because being that this has to hold the suction, it might not. And I didn't put a patch over this just because it's on the corner. It's sort of an awkward spot, and this weather strip adhesive isn't the greatest to work with, so I'm going to wing it and see what happens. Worst comes to worst, I'll just put the plug back in the vent tube for the booster and run it like that. I just emailed a couple of companies that might have rebuild kits for these. With any luck, they will. If they do, I'm going to order one of them up and I'll rebuild that myself. So for now, I'm not going to do my steering stabilizer today. I'm going to save that for tomorrow, which that is right here. Nice heavy duty one with a spring on it. So I'll be taking care of that tomorrow. But for the remainder of the day, I'm going to go through the carburetor and the governor again and the timing, because I finally found a maintenance manual for this truck on eBay. They're reprints. It was like 45 bucks and it's got almost 800 pages worth of stuff on it. Everything on this truck was well worth it. And I also figured out I had a lot of stuff adjusted the wrong way because I was just winging it off of what I found online, which wasn't always much for the GMCs. Kind of hard to find info on them. So we're going to open up the hood and get that carburetor pulled off. We're also going to pull off the governor, check that out, and we're going to reset our timing and our points and get that all squared away also. So here we have our carburetor and our governor, and these just stack on top of each other on the 4 studs on the top of the manifold. The carburetor, I don't think it's too dirty. I'm going to check it anyways because the gas tank on this thing isn't the cleanest. I do have a filter in line, but you never know, stuff always slips past. So I'm going to split this in half. I'm going to check the float level again, make sure that's all set, blow out the jets quick, put it back together, and then that'll be ready to put back on. The governor, I was reading in the manual that if it's not set correctly, you will have problems with the engine RPM and power and whatnot. There's a spring inside of here, which I'll show you guys when I go to pull it apart, that gets adjusted at the factory, and then that's it. And this is it's another adjustment that you can do outside of the truck. It's kind of like a fine tune for your RPM. But if it's dirty, once again, it will not run right. You won't be able to get a good acceleration. And as you can see, there's a little filter sort of thing right there. And it's pretty well clogged up with just years of old grease and dust and whatnot. So we're going to disassemble this thing, clean it all up. Might run it through the glass bead blaster just to clean the outside of it and the inside of here up really nice, and then we'll put it back together and hopefully everything will work. So I'm going to get going on this carburetor and I'll check in when I start in on the governor. This probably isn't the first time I'm going to have to do it this year, depending on how much I drive this truck. If you can see it without the, there we go, without the glare of the light, it's all rust from the gas tank. So obviously it's getting past the filter, or the filter's completely clogged up now and it's getting into the carburetor. I started opening up the governor here. As you can see, I have the side piece off, and you can see the springs inside move like so, and there's a little piece that goes in the end of this right here, which goes into this end, and as I turn it, you see I can either tighten the spring to increase my speed or loosen it to decrease it. Now in the book there's a certain setting where you have to have a certain number of coils between this brass piece that moves when you crank it, because you can see it rides the inside of the spring like a screw. So there's a certain amount of coils between that and between this hook where this piece of spring steel is, and that will determine your maximum engine speed. So what I have to do is set it to the factory settings, put it back on the truck. I have a tachometer I can hook up to this and check it, and then I can adjust it with this, and that should theoretically get me my correct engine speed.